To me, like, we've always had this discussion that you don't really know that much when you come out, and you do feel a little bit like you're in the deep end when you start out as a graduate.
Absolutely.
But just the different levels that there are to the postgraduate kind of understanding, and how Jack and I are really kind of a bit infatuated with this idea of like the evolution of knowledge, and how sometimes that can't be rushed, no matter how much you would like to speed that up as a younger clinician.
For sure.
Those experiences and the depth to which you start to expand your knowledge takes time. And I don't know whether that's got to do with like underlying actual neuroscience and how long it actually takes for those networks to grow and for those associations to start actually knitting.
Yeah.
But it just seems like there's a minimum of almost like a 10-year period where you're building this kind of grounds, and that's even if you're trying to build it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people
Yeah,
don't have any experience at all.
Well, you know, the other difficult thing I think too is there's no formal process of what you do once you graduate. Like as opposed to say medicine, where
you get forced into
you do your medicine degree, and then you go into internship, residency, then you might go, and then you go into some specialization.
Yeah.
Now there's some kind of pathways you can take in physiotherapy, but the reality is there's a lot of different pathways you can take, whether you actually do formal study or informal study. And the other big thing is what environment you're in, because that's going to be a big influence of whether you actually learn and enjoy what you do or actually hate it. But I think that's one of the other big challenges, and like John said, it's one thing I probably stopped and thought about after talking to Richard, was going, yeah, okay, what are the expectations you have when you graduate from an undergraduate course? And it's probably, my ideas were like way up here, but now I'm like, okay, actually you probably need to be thinking here. And then the reality is you need to be thinking whether you do a formal and informal sense of how do you get to that next level that you want to be at to actually start to feel like you have an understanding of broad principles, and more importantly, how you actually apply them in the real world.
Yeah, but I think like something that you said then, John, I think, you know, when your opinion is it takes about 10 years, but I don't think that's a synaptic brain thing. I think that's just exposure. Yeah. So just exposure over and over and over and over again.
Well, I
and
sort of
seeing
said that's the minimum almost
that's
as
out
well.
There.
Yeah,
agree.
How like, it's interesting because we had this conversation similarly with Paul, and obviously you've been doing this for more than 20 years now. How do you feel as a clinician that stayed in both the research and the clinical sphere that's continued to develop for you? And has that been just a natural thing for you because you clearly are a very curious person as well? Or is that something that you actually have had to foster as you've gone further on? They're like, okay, I've actually got to keep exploring these things.
Yeah, I think that's just a naturally occurring thing. I don't ever sit back and think, oh, now I need to do X, Y, and Z. It's just kind of happened gradually over time. But yeah, so I think exposure to the immense variation that's out in the population, because you can go to a lecture, on tendons by Jill Cook or Ebony Rio and go, right, well, this is kind of, now I know how to do tendons. But, you know,
I'm sure you would say that after seeing them, but anyway.
But, okay, we can talk about that later. But then you see the very next person doesn't fit necessarily into that nice category.